Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I know a lot of us have just kick-started the year. Some of us were in the office last week, getting ahead of the game. And while some of you I know were on vacation, so I hope y'all had a wonderful break. We are back. It is January 5th, and want to go over a few items before I get into value squared. Want to make sure I go over the cadence for these calls so everybody's on the same page. So Mondays are going to be value squared. We're going to be reviewing that and chunking that down. On Tuesdays are all things AI related, and we'll go and continue to go through prompts. On Wednesday is shift, so we'll continue diving into shift. On Thursdays, we'll talk about market statistics and what we're seeing on in the market. And Friday is where I love to hear from you all about what you've implemented throughout the week and what is going well in your real estate in personal life or whatever it may be. So that gives us the time to connect and reflect and look towards the upcoming week. And a few things I want to touch on in regards to the office. Mississippi, somebody can enlighten me on this since I don't have a license in Mississippi. So please let me know. Tennessee, though, new forms are out in Tennessee. So please make sure you're using the updated TAR forms. I'm going to show y'all real quick where that is, just so everybody has it. If you go to Forms on the Fly in Tennessee Association of Realtors forms, you can see the new form changes. You can also watch the webinar here, but it'll tell you exactly what's changed. And being the professionals that we are, we should go through this today, read through this, see what has changed so that we can make sure that we change up our verbiage when explaining these forms to our clients. Mississippi, if y'all have form changes, can y'all please let me know? I'm not sure if you do or not, but we do every year at this time of year, and I want to make sure y'all all have access to that. And then tomorrow is state of the company, i.e., we've got some really cool panels coming in. We're going to talk about future, what I believe the future of real estate is going to look like. We're also going to go over the 5 keys of selling real estate in the future. We're going to have panelists. We're going to have panelists that have increased their business in one of the toughest real estate markets, and just a lot of value tomorrow. So if you can get on and come into the office, we'd love to see your face in person. If you cannot, we'll obviously have you on Zoom as well, and we'll see you there. So a lot of stuff to kickstart the year. Just wanted to make sure we reset just with some of the value adds that the office is providing. So want to get back to value squared today. I'm going to share my screen. Give me 1 minute. Let me drive. Can everybody see my screen right now? For those that are not driving. Perfect. I'm assuming y'all can, so I'm going to keep rolling.
Yes.
All that to say is we talked about showing our value and taking the time to show our value. And with our last call, which I'm going to regroup on that today just because I want to make sure everybody's on the same page, we are talking about seller core services. So when we're sitting with the seller, we've got to explain what we do as real estate agents, and then we have to take them on a journey of discovering our value in that and discovering what a market value is for their property, right? And I want to make sure I reiterate on this because we need to make sure that we, as realtors and the potential client, are on the same page about this goal. Mr. Miss Seller, I'm assuming that you want to net the most amount of money with the fewest amount of hassles in the least amount of time. This would be a good phrase for you to put in your listing presentations to make sure, number one, is this your goal? Because if it's not your goal, then what is your goal, right? So in order to consult with them, I have to ask them that question, and then I have to make sure that we're in alignment with this goal. So do you want to net the most amount of money with the fewest amount of hassles in the least amount of time? 99% of the time, they're going to say yes, right? And then you're going to have to take them on a journey of what services are you going to provide that helps bring this to fruition. So this is where we go into seller core services. And this is where I put in the Facebook group a few weeks ago. I want to make sure this is documented in your presentation so that you're not going in as an entrepreneur with trying to remember how to present your listing presentation. Everything is already documented so that you can go ahead and have a system and a process when you're talking to a seller. So we're going to talk about each of these stages. Number one, core services are going to fall into 4 categories. Number one, consulting to to a decision, marketing, negotiating, and closing the sale. So just a snapshot of what you do and what you provide. And then down here, it talks more about consulting to the decision. And this is where I left off. I asked y'all to take this and create your presentation. I.e., do you have a needs analysis? Do you have set questions that you already have printed out in a nice folder that you're able to ask before you go and do the homes walkthrough? So you walk in the door, Mr. and Ms. Seller, I've got several questions. Before we get started today, I want to make sure I'm meeting your needs, and I want to make sure that we're on the same page with your goals. So if it's okay with you, I'd love to sit at the kitchen table, and I'd love to ask you a few questions, and then I will give you some time to ask me some questions. And then as I go through the presentation, obviously I want you to ask all of the questions to me if you have any questions or concerns, or if I'm sharing something with you or not sharing something with you that is a concern to you. So we're going to start with the needs analysis, and we're going to do the home walkthrough, briefly share who you are, i.e. that should be an elevator pitch. I would say 30 seconds or less. People care about themselves. I hate to say this, not about as much about you. So make sure you're asking questions of them. Make sure you put them as the focus of the presentation and not just yourself. And then number 3, explain the process. And I want to go through this in detail. And I want to make sure you actually have this in your presentation. What do you do? How do you do it? And what's the value to them? I.e., what activity are you going to do? How are you going to do it differently? And I would add to that, how are you going to do it differently than other realtors? What makes you unique? And the value that it is going to bring back to them, i.e., is it going to net them the most amount of money with the least amount of hassles and the least amount of time? So how can you tie that to this process piece? How you get compensated, obviously it's important that you go through that. Don't avoid it. You need to go in there and just say, hey, this is my menu of services. These are my offerings, right? Whether they want to offer cooperative compensation, and I think this is a big one that I want to hit on. Explain the process, i.e. pros and cons of leveraging the MLS. So we talk a lot about seller optionality, i.e. you want options when you get on Hulu or Netflix, and the same goes for a seller that is wanting to hire an agent. They want to know that, hey, here's my 3 packages. Here's my 3 options. Mr. and Miss Seller, you pick. Do you want to market it off the MLS first before putting it on the MLS? And if it saves you time, money, and hassle, is that something you're interested in? Yes or no? And if they say no, no big deal. You obviously put it on the MLS. Some of them will say, yes, I am interested in leveraging off market, which everybody, I think, at this point should know that we have an off-market platform for you to put that listing on there, okay? But you do have to have an agreement stating that the seller does not want to list it on MLS until XYZ date, and then you are putting it and marketing it through our agent network, okay? So I want to make sure y'all actually have a slide in there for optionality, and you're not just saying you have to go to MLS, because some people don't want to go to MLS. Some people want to know if you can go find them a buyer. Go through the home valuation process. We talked about this at length. So this is where we're going through this slide. This is Steve Schlueter's. For those that have not been on the call with us since the beginning, this is Steve Schlueter's pricing recommendation and his pricing presentation, where it talks about the 3 different markets: wholesale market, market price, and premium price. I am putting this in my presentation. I have it in our listing presentation now, which having it in the presentation means me and any of the agents on our team are going to have to go through this presentation to talk about the different markets. And then we also have to be knowledgeable enough to talk about the trends. Is the market trending upward to a seller's market, or is it trending downward and compressing to a buyer's market? Same thing over here with condition and motivation versus time. So I want to make sure that y'all have that in your presentation. And then I also want to make sure that you all have net sheets. You need to go over net, because most of the sellers are going to be looking at just what they think is the price of their home. What they don't understand is the cost of sell associated with their selling of their home. So i.e., what are all the things that we can look at that may or may not be a deficit to their net, and then how can I show them 3 different pricing strategies that'll net them X, Y, and Z. So going through all of this at length should take time because you're actually consulting with them. You're making sure that they're following and going along with you, i.e., they are agreement of the expectations. Everybody's on the same page about where you're going, and everybody's goals are in alignment. Obviously, number six, they decide if they decide to sell or not, and then you're going to review the listing agreement with condition disclosures. When I say review the listing agreement, I literally mean this is a buyer agreement. But what I mean is you're going to say on line 71 through 98, this right here is going over agency. Within our brokerage, I would be the designated agent for you. And then you explain that. So can you explain in different chunks of this agreement what this means and the terminology so that you can clearly explain that to a seller? Most people are not going to go over these forms. As a fiduciary and the type of professionals that we are, we certainly are going to go over that information with them. So I'm going to stop there. I just went over an entire consulting to the decision process, and we're going to talk about marketing next. And I talked about this at length this past fall. We start here because most people are going here first. You're going here. We want to know needs analysis. We want to know motivation. We want to make sure we're in alignment. We want to talk about the market. We want to help them understand how to price it such that they get multiple offers, right? Or they get more of a net with less time and less hassle. So I threw a lot at you today. What questions do you have? This needs to be documented in a presentation. I'm going to pause and get it off of that screen share. What questions do you have for me about that? Why do I want to document it in a system? Why is that important?
So we don't forget it and we can walk through step by step.
You can duplicate it, right? And so if it's not written down in a system, you can't duplicate it. But if it's written in a system, then you can duplicate it. Most businesses, y'all, are valued obviously off of what the business is worth, but people want to understand the operating system of that organization. So this is why everything has to be documented so that you have a true standard of practice for your practice, which is your real estate practice, right? So that eventually, if you wanted to, you could scale it, or you can teach somebody how to do the exact same system that is helping you net more money for your clients in less amount of time and less hassle. I know it's a lot. However, all I'm asking y'all to do is to take this, going back here, take this information right here and put this in a listing presentation. And it shouldn't be that hard. It should take you probably maybe 3 hours to put that together. You can pull needs analysis. They're probably in Command on Connect. There's all kinds of things that you could go through, but I want to make sure you actually document it. And the reason why we're starting with sellers is because those who control the inventory control the market. So, all right, y'all. Monday, I got a lot of energy, just so everybody knows, and for accountability purposes, I got my appointment last week. I've got to make sure I get another appointment this week because in order to do that, I'm going to bring in six figures to my organization, and I'd encourage you to do the same. So your goal and your marching orders is to get one appointment this week. Call somebody you know, make a care call, see how their year is going or how it started off, and let's make it happen today. Y'all let me know if you need anything. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.